The message came at midnight. Station time. Ambassador Kira Vasquez was sleeping in her small quarters on station, Axis Prime, when her communicator screamed to life. She sat up fast, her heart beating hard. Emergency signals never meant good news. She read the words on the screen 3 times before she believed them. The Velith homeworld was burning. The Keth Dominion had come with warships and weapons, and they were killing everyone. Kira had met the Velith once. They were small creatures, barely reaching her waist. Their skin glowed with soft light, blues and greens and purples shifting like living auroras. They had large, dark eyes and gentle voices. They were healers and scientists. They had no weapons. They had no army. They believed that kindness could solve any problem. The Keth believed in power, and they wanted the quantum crystals buried deep under Vela soil. These crystals were worth more than gold, more than planets. And the Keth would kill 12 billion innocent beings to get them. Within hours, Kira was on a ship heading back to Earth. The Terran Council had called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every human colony were gathering to decide what to do. The council chamber was old and grand, built in the style of ancient governments. Wooden benches rose in circles around a central floor. Screens covered the walls, showing maps and data and the faces of leaders joining from distant worlds. Kira took her seat and listened to the arguments. General Torres spoke first. He was a hard man with gray hair and cold eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. His voice was flat and practical. The Velith were not allies, he said. They had no treaty with Earth. They had no military value. They had nothing to offer humanity except friendship, and friendship did not win wars. The Keth Dominion controlled 40 star systems. Their fleet was massive. Their weapons were advanced. A war with them would cost millions of human lives. Other leaders nodded. The math was simple. The Velith were kind and gentle and dying, but saving them would mean sacrifice. It would mean blood. It would mean graves. Kira watched the votes begin to tilt toward doing nothing. She felt sick, but she was only an ambassador. She had no power here. Then Admiral Marcus Chen stood up. He was old now, past 80, with white hair and a walking stick. He had retired years ago. But when the emergency call went out, he had come. And when he stood, the chamber went quiet. Everyone knew his name. Everyone knew his story. Marcus Chen spoke in a soft voice, but it carried to every corner of the room. 40 years ago, he said, he was a young lieutenant on a colony ship called the Perseverance. 12,000 people were on board, families and farmers and engineers, heading to start a new life on a distant world. They were full of hope. Then the engine exploded. The ship was crippled. Life support was failing. They sent distress signals, but no one answered. They were too far from human space. No one could reach them in time, except one ship did. A small Velith medical frigate called the Gentle. Dawn picked up their signal. It was the only vessel within range. The Velith captain, a commander named Luminos, did not hesitate. She ordered her ship to intercept. The Velith had limited fuel. They had limited supplies. Helping the humans meant risking everything. Their own crew might not survive the journey home. Their own families might never see them again. Commander Luminos did not care. She said that beings were dying, and she could help, so she would help. That was all. The Velith arrived and worked for 6 days straight. They shared their food, their medicine, their air. They carried human children in their small arms. They sang soft songs to calm the frightened. They gave everything they had. All 12,000 humans survived. The Velith barely made it home. Their ship limped into port with empty tanks and exhausted crew. 3 Velith died from the strain. Commander Luminos spent a year recovering from the effort, And when humans tried to pay them back, tried to offer resources and technology and anything they could give, the Velith refused. Commander Luminos sent only one message in response. It said, "You were suffering. We could help." "That is enough." Admiral Chen finished his story. The chamber was silent. Some leaders had tears on their faces. Others stared at their hands. Then Marcus Chen looked around the room and asked a simple question. What kind of people are we? Are we the kind who count the cost of everything? Who measure kindness in resources and repay mercy with mathematics? Are we the kind who let gentle creatures burn because saving them is inconvenient? Or are we the kind who remember? Kira Vasquez felt something shift in the room. She saw faces changing, backs straightening, hands forming fists. She saw shame being replaced by something else, something old and deep and powerful. General Torres spoke again. His voice was different now, rough with emotion. He had a grandson. That grandson existed because his daughter existed. And his daughter existed because 20 years ago, she was born on a colony world that was settled by survivors of the Perseverance. If the Velith had not come, his family line would have ended in the cold dark of space. The vote changed. One by one, hands rose. Leaders who had argued for caution voted to fight. Leaders who had calculated costs chose to pay them anyway. The motion passed without a single voice against it. Humanity would go to war for the Velith. After the meeting, Admiral Chen stood by a window looking out at the stars. Kira approached him slowly, uncertain what to say. The old man smiled at her. It was a tired smile, but warm. "I am too old to fight," he said. "But I will watch, and I will be proud." Then he turned to his aide, a young officer with bright eyes and trembling hands. "Send word to the Keth," Admiral Chen said. His voice was soft, but there was iron underneath it. "Tell them we are coming. Tell them they have one chance to leave Velith space. And tell them that humanity has a long memory. We never forget a kindness, and we never forgive those who hurt our friends." The message went out across the stars that night. It reached Keth commanders and Velith survivors and alien observers across 100 worlds. And everywhere it landed, beings looked at each other and wondered what would happen next. On the bridge of the Keth flagship, Warlord Dexgor read the human message and laughed. They were small creatures. These humans, weak, emotional. They would learn their place. But deep in the dark between stars, human ships were already moving. Thousands of them. More every hour. An armada born not from conquest, but from gratitude. The Velith had shown humanity kindness once. Now humanity was coming to return the favor. The news spread faster than light itself. Humanity was going to war. Not for territory. Not for resources. Not for power. They were going to war because someone had been kind to them 40 years ago. Across the galaxy, alien species watched their screens and tried to understand. Most of them failed. On the crystal spires of Azuran Prime, the great analysts gathered to study the situation. These beings had brains the size of small vehicles. They had calculated the fall of empires and the birth of stars. They understood everything about the universe except this one thing. The Velith offered nothing, they said. No strategic position. No rare materials beyond what the Keth already wanted. No military strength. No political influence. They were small and weak and peaceful. Helping them would cost humanity billions in resources and thousands in lives. The numbers made no sense. The decision made no sense. Humanity made no sense. One young analyst suggested that perhaps the humans were simply insane. The elders considered this theory seriously. In the dark halls of the communion of spheres, ancient beings debated in slow, grinding voices. They had existed for millions of years. They had seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. They thought they understood all the patterns of intelligent life. But humans did not fit the patterns. Every other species in the galaxy calculated benefit and cost before acting. Every other species protected their own and ignored the rest. That was the way of survival. That was the way of evolution. Creatures that sacrificed themselves for strangers did not last long. Yet here were the humans, gathering their ships and their soldiers, preparing to die for beings they barely knew. The communion decided to watch carefully. Perhaps they would learn something new. Perhaps they would watch humanity destroy itself. Either way, it would be interesting. The Keth Dominion was not watching. They were laughing. Warlord Dexcor stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Crushing Fist, and read report after report about the human fleet. He was a massive creature, 12 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like black stone. He had conquered 17 star systems. He had burned worlds and crushed rebellions. He feared nothing in the universe. These humans, he thought, were fools. Yes, they had gathered many ships. Yes, they were coming fast. But quantity meant nothing against Keth quality. His weapons were stronger. His armor was thicker. His warriors were born for battle, bred for violence, trained from birth to kill. The humans were soft. They cared about feelings. They rescued each other instead of leaving the weak to die. Such creatures could not win a real war. Dexcor gave orders to continue the bombardment of Velith Korra. Let the humans come. Let them watch their precious Velith die. Let them learn that kindness was weakness and mercy was death. But far away, on the burning surface of Velith Korra, something unexpected was happening. Elder Lumai stood in the ruins of what had once been a healing center. She was very old now, her light dim and flickering. Around her, her people huddled in fear. The sky was full of fire. The ground shook with explosions. They had no weapons, no defenses, no hope. Then a young Velith came running to her, eyes wide with confusion. Elder, the young one said, ships are coming. Many ships. But they are not Keth. Luminous looked up at the sky. Through the smoke and flame, she could see points of light appearing. Dozens of them. Hundreds. More arriving every minute. A voice came through on all frequencies. It was a human voice, calm and strong. This is Admiral Chun of the Terran Fleet. We are here to help. Hold on. We are coming. Lumos felt her legs give way. She sank to the ground, her glow brightening despite her exhaustion. She did not understand. She could not understand. That rescue mission was so long ago. She had never expected anything in return. She had simply done what was right. But the humans remembered. She wept light, colors streaming down her face like tears made of rainbows. Around her, other Velith began to glow brighter too. Not with fear now, but with something else. Something like hope. On the flagship Remembrance, Admiral Chun watched the data streams with tired eyes. He was too old to command a fleet. His doctors had told him to rest, to let younger officers lead. But he had refused. This was personal. His daughter was alive because of the Velith. His grandchildren existed because Commando Luminos had made a choice 40 years ago. He would see this through himself, or he would die trying. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet intensity. These were not the polished professionals of peacetime Navy. Many were volunteers who had come out of retirement when they heard the call. Some were civilians who had never served at all. But every single one of them had a story. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka had grown up hearing tales of the perseverance from her grandmother. Chief Engineer Rodriguez had married a woman whose entire family survived because of the Velith rescue. Ensign Kim's great-uncle had been one of the children carried to safety in Velith arms. The humans had come from everywhere. From Earth and Mars and the colony worlds scattered across human space. They had come in military cruisers and converted cargo ships and personal yachts armed with whatever weapons they could find. They had come because they remembered, and now they were in orbit around Veloth Kora, facing the Keth Dominion. Admiral Chun opened a channel to all ships. His voice was steady. "This is Admiral Chun to all vessels. We have arrived. The Keth have 12 hours to withdraw from this system completely. If they refuse, we will remove them by force." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew, seeing the fear and determination mixed together. "I know many of you are afraid," he continued. "So am I. The Keth are powerful. This will not be easy. But remember why we are here. 40 years ago, a small ship full of strangers saved our people when they had nothing to gain. They did it because it was right. Now we have a chance to show the galaxy what that means to us." He took a breath. "Humanity never forgets a kindness. And today, the universe will learn what happens when you threaten our friends." The message ended. Across the fleet, humans checked their weapons and said quiet prayers and thought about the people they loved. On Veloth Kora, Elder Luman stood in the ruins and watched the human ships fill the sky. She remembered a young species, lost and dying, reaching out for help. She remembered choosing to answer. She had thought that moment was the end of the story. She was wrong. It was only the beginning. And in the Keth Command Center, Warlord Dexcor received the human ultimatum. He read it twice, then crushed the display in one massive fist. 12 hours, he growled. They give us 12 hours. We will give them death. The countdown began. The 12 hours passed in silence. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Remembrance, watching the clock count down. Around him, officers spoke in whispers. Screens showed the positions of both fleets, human ships in blue, Keth ships in red. There were more red dots than blue. At 0 hour, Chun opened a channel one final time. "Keth Dominion forces," he said, "your time has expired. Will you withdraw?" The answer came in the form of weapons fire. A wave of missiles launched from the Keth fleet, screaming toward the human ships. Chun did not flinch. "All ships," he said calmly. "Weapons free." The Battle of Veloth Kora began. In the first hour, the Keth learned something unexpected. They had fought many species before. They knew how civilized beings made war. Careful advances, calculated retreats, surrender when the odds turned bad. Humans did not fight like civilized beings. The heavy cruiser, Defiant, took 3 direct hits to her port side. Fires broke out across multiple decks. Her captain, a woman named Torres, reported that shields were failing and casualties were mounting. Fleet Command told her to fall back for repairs. She refused. "Keep shooting," she ordered her crew. "We did not come here to run." The Defiant stayed in the fight. Her guns kept firing even as her hull melted. When she finally went dark, she had taken 9 Keth destroyers with her. This scene repeated across the battle. Human ships that should have retreated kept fighting. Damaged vessels rammed into enemy formations. Pilots flew suicide runs to protect their comrades. The Keth had superior technology, but technology could not measure the fire in human hearts. Warlord Dexcor watched from his command deck and felt something he had never felt before. It was small and cold and sat in his stomach like a stone. It was doubt. These humans fought as if they were already dead. They fought as if nothing mattered except the Veloth below. They threw themselves against his ships with no regard for their own survival. It made no sense. How could any species care so much about strangers? On the surface of Veloth Kora, the ground war was even more intense. Terran Marines dropped from the sky in armored pods, crashing through the burning atmosphere to land in the middle of Keth invasion forces. They were outnumbered 5-1. The Keth soldiers were bigger, stronger, and better equipped. The Marines did not care. Sergeant Michael Okonkwo led his squad through the ruins of Avella City, hunting Keth soldiers who had been slaughtering civilians. He was bleeding from a wound in his shoulder. He had not slept in 2 days, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw the pictures his grandmother had shown him. Pictures of Velith doctors carrying human children to safety. Pictures of gentle hands and glowing skin and kindness in the darkness. He kicked open a door and found 3 Keth warriors standing over a group of terrified Velith. The aliens turned, surprised. Okonkwo raised his rifle. Not today, he said. The fight was brutal and short. When it ended, 2 Marines were dead, and all 3 Keth were down. Okonkwo helped the surviving Velith to their feet with shaking hands. One of them, a young healer named Solace, looked up at him with huge dark eyes. "Why did you come?" she asked in broken human language. "Why do you fight for us?" Okonkwo thought about his grandmother, about the stories she told, about the quiet mercy that had given his family a future. "Your people saved mine once," he said simply. "We owed you one." The Velith did not understand. They had never thought of the rescue that way. To them, helping others was not something that created debt. It was simply what one did. But humans remembered. And humans repaid. In orbit, the tide of battle was turning. The Keth had more ships, but they were beginning to realize that quantity meant nothing against an enemy that refused to die. Every time they destroyed a human vessel, the others fought harder. Every time they pushed forward, the humans pushed back twice as hard. Warlord Dexgor called for a tactical assessment. His advisors reported losses far beyond projections. Morale among the crews was falling. The humans should have broken by now. They should have scattered and fled. But they kept coming. "Order the second wave," Dexgor commanded. "Break through their lines." The second wave launched. Fresh Keth ships surged toward the human formation, and the humans did something unexpected. Instead of spreading out to defend, they concentrated. Every ship that could still fight moved together, forming a wall of metal and fire between the Keth and Velith Korra. They did not try to win. They only tried to hold. Admiral Chun watched the battle map and saw his fleet dying. Good ships. Good people. They would not survive another hour at this rate, but they did not need to survive. They only needed to give the ground forces enough time. "All ships," he said, his voice tired but steady. "Hold the line." On the surface, the Marines were winning. The Keth ground forces, cut off from orbital support, were being pushed back. Velith civilians were being evacuated to protected zones. The tide was turning. Then the Keth fleet began to retreat. That had happened slowly at first. One destroyer breaking formation. Then another. Then whole squadrons pulling back, their captains deciding that the price was too high. Warlord Dexgor screamed at them to return. He threatened death for cowardice. But his commanders had seen enough. They had fought many species, and none of them had been like this. But humans did not fight for land or resources or power. They fought for something else. Something the Keth could not understand. And that made them terrifying. The retreat became a rout. Keth ships scattered in all directions, fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. On the Remembrance, exhausted officers began to cheer. They had done it. Against all odds, they had driven away the Dominion. But Admiral Chun did not cheer. He was staring at his screens with a cold expression. "Sir," one of his officers said, "they are running." "We have one." Chun shook his head slowly. "Not yet," he said. "Look." He pointed at the screen. In the chaos of retreat, the sensors had picked up something new. A massive object in high orbit. Hidden until now. Now active. The signature was unmistakable. It was a planet-killer bomb. The Keth had known they might lose. And they had decided that if they could not have Velith Korra, no one would. Chun felt his heart turn to ice. "How long?" he asked quietly. The officer checked the readings. Her face went pale. 1 hour, she whispered. Maybe less. Below them, 12 billion Velith waited in shelters and ruins, believing they were saved. They did not know that death was still coming. Admiral Chun closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and turned to his crew. Find me a way to stop that bomb, he ordered. Whatever it takes. The race against time had begun. The clock was ticking. On the bridge of the Remembrance, engineers and scientists worked in frantic silence. Screens filled with data. Voices called out numbers and calculations. Everyone knew the truth. Even before the final report came in, the bomb could not be stopped remotely. It was too heavily shielded for transporters, too armored for weapons fire. The detonation system was buried deep inside layers of metal and energy fields. The only way to disarm it was to go inside and do it by hand. And the bomb was surrounded by automated defenses. Guns and missiles that would tear apart any ship that approached. Admiral Chun listened to the report with a face like stone. He had known this moment was coming. He had hoped he was wrong. I need volunteers, he said quietly. Someone has to fly in there and disable the device manually. Before he finished speaking, lights began flashing on his console. Requests to speak. Offers to go. Captain Yuki Tanaka of the assault frigate Defiance was the first to respond. Sir, she said, my ship is fast and heavily armored. We can get through those defenses. My crew is ready. Other captains spoke up. Dozens of them. Old vessels and new ones. Large crews and small. All of them willing to die. Chun looked at the list and felt his eyes burn. These people knew what they were offering. They knew they would not come back. He thought about letting a computer choose. Random selection. Nobody to blame, but that was cowardice, and Chun was not a coward. Captain Tanaka, he said, your ship has the best chance of making it through. The mission is yours. Tanaka's voice came back steady and clear. Understood, sir. It has been an honor. The Defiance was a small ship, built for fast strikes and dangerous missions. Her crew numbered 340 souls. They had families back home, children, loves, lives waiting for them. Tanaka gathered them in the main cargo bay. There was no time for long speeches. You know what we are going to do, she said. You know what it means. If anyone wants to leave, take an escape pod now. No one will think less of you. No one moved. Lieutenant Hashimoto, the weapons officer, spoke up from the back. Captain, he said, my grandfather was on the Perseverance. The Velith carried him to safety when he was 4 years old. He used to tell me that story every birthday. He smiled, but there were tears on his face. I always wondered how I could ever repay that debt. Now, I know. Other voices joined in. Other stories. The Defiance crew was not just following orders. They had chosen this. They believed in it. Tanaka felt pride swell in her chest. She had never commanded finer people. All hands to stations, she ordered. We launch in 5 minutes. The Defiance accelerated toward the bomb. On the Remembrance, Admiral Chun watched the small ship fly towards certain death. He wanted to call them back. He wanted to find another way. But there was no other way, and time was running out. 30 minutes left. The automated defenses activated as the Defiance entered their range. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams lashed out. The small frigate dove and weaved, her pilot pushing the engines beyond their limits. First hit took out the starboard weapons. A ray. The second cracked the hull on deck 3. Third killed everyone in engineering. But the Defiance kept flying. 20 minutes left. Tanaka herself took the helm when the pilot died. Her hands moved across the controls with desperate precision. Around her, damage alarms screamed. Crew members shouted reports of fires and breaches and casualties. Almost there, she said through gritted teeth. Just a little further. The Defiance crashed through the final defense perimeter and slammed into the bomb's outer housing. Metal screamed against metal. The ship lodged itself in the structure like a knife in a wound. 15 minutes left. Tanaka sealed her Ava suit and made her way to the airlock. Behind her, the surviving crew members worked to keep the ship stable. Many of them were wounded. All of them were exhausted. "Keep her steady," she ordered. "I will be right back." She knew it was a lie. They all knew. Outside, the bomb was massive and cold and ugly. Tanaka pulled herself along its surface, following the schematic data on her helmet display. The detonation system was at the core. She had to get inside. 10 minutes left. She found an access panel and forced it open. Inside, cables and circuits pulsed with deadly energy. She had studied the designs during the flight. She knew what to look for. The trigger mechanism was buried under layers of protection. She cut through them one by one, her hand steady despite the fear. 5 minutes left. She found it. A small device, no bigger than her fist. It controlled everything. Her fingers touched the casing. She could feel the power humming inside. 3 minutes left. She worked faster than she had ever worked in her life. Cutting wires, bypassing circuits. Her grandmother had been an engineer. Her mother had been an engineer. The skills ran in her blood. 1 minute left. The final wire. She cut it. The countdown stopped. For one long moment, there was silence. Then Tanaka laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. Remembrance, she called into her radio. "Bomb is disarmed." Repeat. "Bomb is disarmed." But even as she spoke, something was wrong. The mechanism had stopped, but not completely. The partial cascade was releasing. Not enough to destroy the planet, but enough. Warning lights flashed on her helmet display. Energy readings spiked. Tanaka. Admiral Chen's voice came through the radio. "Get out of there. Now." She looked at the readings. She looked at her ship, battered and broken, with her crew still inside. There was no time. "Get them out," she said quietly. "Get my people off the ship. I will hold this as long as I can. Captain." "No. Chen." Her voice was calm now, peaceful. "It's been an honor." The blast wave hit on the Remembrance. Sensors showed the explosion. Not a planet killer now, but still immense. The Defiance was caught in the center. When the light faded, there was nothing left. Admiral Marcus Chun stood on the bridge with tears streaming down his face. Around him, officers wept openly. The price had been paid. On the surface of Velith Kora, Novellis saw the flash in the sky. They did not know what it meant. They only knew that the bombardment had stopped, that the enemy was gone, that somehow, impossibly, they were alive. Elder Lumai stood in the ruins and looked up at the stars. She could feel it in her ancient bones. Something terrible had happened. Something beautiful. A sacrifice beyond words. One by one, the Velith began to glow. First a few, then hundreds, then millions. Across the entire planet, every being capable of producing light did so. From orbit. It looked like the planet was catching fire. But it was not fire. It was mourning. It was gratitude. It was 12 billion souls saying thank you to 340 humans who would never hear it. Admiral. Chun watched the planet glow and felt something break inside him. Then something else filled the empty space. Something hard and cold and sharp. Set course for Keth Prime, he ordered. This is not over. The fleet began to move. Humanity had come to save the Velith. They had paid in blood and fire and the lives of their best people. Now they were going to make sure it never happened again. The human fleet arrived at Keth Prime 3 weeks later. Warlord Dexcor had fled to his homeworld, gathering every remaining ship for a final stand. He told his people that the humans were coming to conquer them, to enslave them, to destroy their civilization. He promised them victory if they fought hard enough, though he was wrong about everything. Admiral Chun did not attack the planet. Instead, he broadcast a message on every frequency. Every screen on Keth Prime showed the same thing. It was a recording of the war. Not the Keth version with its heroic music and glorious battles. The real version. Velith cities burning. Velith children crying. Keth soldiers laughing as they killed unarmed civilians. And then it showed the bomb. The planet killer that Dexcor had hidden in orbit. The weapon designed to murder 12 billion innocent beings, rather than let them live free. The Keth people watched in silence. They had been told they were warriors, defenders, protectors of their great civilization. They had not known what their leaders did in their name. Chun spoke next. His voice was tired but clear. "We did not come to conquer you," he said. "We did not come to enslave you. We came because your leaders tried to murder our friends." He paused, letting the words sink in. The warlord Dexcor committed crimes against innocent people. He must answer for those crimes. That is all we ask. Justice. Nothing more. For 3 days, nothing happened. The Keth fleet held position. The human fleet waited. Then the revolution began. It started with questions. Soldiers asking their officers why they had been ordered to kill civilians. Officers asking their commanders why the planet killer existed. Commanders having no good answers. On the 4th day, Dexcor's own guards turned on him. They dragged him from his throne room and threw him in a cell. Then they opened a channel to the human fleet. "He is yours," they said. "Do with him as you wish." Admiral Chun considered the offer. Part of him wanted to accept. Part of him wanted to make Dexcor suffer for what he had done, for Captain Tanaka and her crew, for all the Velith who had died. But that was not why humanity had come. "We do not want him," Chun replied. "He is your criminal. Try him yourselves. Show the galaxy that the Keth can choose justice over cruelty." It was a risk. The Keth might have let Dexcor go. They might have made him a hero again. They did not. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Evidence was presented. Witnesses spoke. Dexcor screamed that he had done nothing wrong, that the strong had the right to take from the weak. The court found him guilty. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life on a prison planet, alone, with nothing but memories of his fallen empire. It was not a violent end. But for a creature who had lived for power, it was worse than death. In the months that followed, the Keth Dominion fell apart. The systems they had conquered declared independence. Slave species threw off their chains. Warlords fought each other for scraps of power. The mighty empire became dust and chaos. Humanity did not take any territory. They did not demand tribute. They asked for only one thing. On Keth Prime, in the center of the capital city, a monument was built. It was made of Velith crystal and human steel, woven together in patterns that caught the light. 340 names were carved into its surface, each one a member of the Defiance crew. At the base, words were written in both Keth and human languages. They died so that others could live. Remember them. The Keth were required to maintain the monument forever. Every year, on the anniversary of the Battle of Velith Korra, the names would be read aloud. No Keth would ever forget. 6 months after the war ended, a ceremony was held on Velith Korra. The planet was healing. Buildings were being rebuilt. Gardens were growing again. The Velith would carry scars for generations. But they were alive. Ambassador Kira Vasquez stood before a crowd of humans in Velith in front of a new monument. This one was different from the one on Keth Prime. It was a spire of pure light, created by Velith technology that had no equal in the galaxy. Elder Luminous stood beside her. The ancient Velith was frail now, her light barely visible. But she had insisted on being here. Kira read the names of the dead. 340 souls who had given everything for people they had never met. When she reached Captain Yuki Tanaka, her voice broke. She had to stop and breathe before continuing. After the ceremony, Luminos approached her. "I do not understand," the elder said softly. "We helped your people once. It was a small thing. Why did you do so much in return?" Kira thought about the question. She thought about her own grandparents who had lived because of the Velith. She thought about Admiral Chun, crying on his bridge as the Defiance died. She thought about all the humans who had come to fight, not for money or power, but because someone had been kind once. "It was not small to us," she said finally. "You saved our people when you had nothing to gain. You risked everything for strangers. That is not something humans forget, ever." Lumines was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched Kira's hand. Her skin was cool and soft, and a gentle glow passed between them. "Then we are the same," Lumino said. "Both of us remember kindness." Kira smiled. "I think," she said, "that is why we will be friends for a very long time." 1 year after the war, Ambassador Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council. The great chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Beings of light and shadow, of crystal and flesh, of ancient wisdom and new curiosity. All of them were watching the humans speak. Some of them had laughed at humanity before the war. Others had ignored them. Now none of them laughed or ignored. They had seen what humans did for their friends. A delegate from the Azuran Collective asked a question that all of them were thinking. Why? The analyst spread its many limbs in confusion. The Velith offered you nothing. They had no strategic value. By every calculation, your actions were irrational. Vasquez smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You are right," she said. "By your calculations, it was irrational. But we do not calculate kindness. We do not weigh mercy on scales. The Velith helped us when they could have let us die. That is enough. That will always be enough." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. "Many of you are wondering what this means for you. Let me make it simple." Her voice hardened. "Show kindness to humanity, and we will cross the stars to help you. We will fight beside you. We will bleed for you. We will remember your names forever." She paused. "But hurt our friends? Threaten our loved ones? You have seen what we do about that. The Keth Dominion ruled 40 systems. Now they rule rubble and regret. We are small. We are young. We live short lives and feel too much." She smiled again, and this time there was something in it that made ancient beings feel cold. But we never forget. And we never stop. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly delegates began to leave their seats. They approached the human ambassador, one by one. They offered greetings. They offered friendship. They offered the beginning of something new, because they had learned the truth about humanity. These strange creatures, so small and brief, carried fire in their hearts that could warm the galaxy or burn it down. They remembered every kindness and repaid every wrong. They loved too hard and fought too fiercely and never, ever gave up. And those who earned their friendship would never stand alone again. On Velithcora, Elder Lumans died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her descendants. Her last words were about the humans, about the strange beings who had crossed the stars to save her people. She said she finally understood. Kindness was never small. Kindness was never forgotten. Kindness could rattle planets and humans. Above all creatures in the universe, would never let it go unanswered.